Welcome back to the Blue Frontier. Unfortunately, a shiny new stadium is not enough to change Everton's inability to preserve a lead against Bournemouth, and a disastrous 10 minutes in the second half saw the Toffees drop 3 points to the Cherries in the pouring rain. Before we get into breaking down the match, just a reminder, if you enjoyed the show, leave us a rating and review, like the video, subscribe, and find all the links in the description. And I think with the loss at the Hill Dickinson, we have to start with the home form at this season, moving stadiums. We have this from Buntaro is an Evertonian from X, who said, no home wins since Forest, which was December the 6th. A team imperious away, so sloppy and prone to head loss at home. When you consider how good the away form has been in comparison, and normally you'd expect it to be flipped, but looking at the numbers, Everton, 14th in the Premier League in the home form table. In the away table, Everton are 5th, 16 points at home to 21 points away. 5 points doesn't feel like that gigantic a gap, but with all of the promise of the new stadium and starting...
We need a new stadium. That's what we need, right?
Yeah, let's just burn it down. Let's start from scratch. Or just go back to Goodison if we can. But I think the performances is where you get yourself into a little bit of trouble, because the results away have been great, but the performances maybe not quite as much so. If you look at expected points, which is obviously just expected goal differential turned into results, Everton are 12th in the away table in expected points, but 5th in total points. And home, we are 14th in expected points and 14th in regular points. So we're actually performances, we've overachieved maybe relative to our performances away, and we're pretty bang on as far as our performances at home.
Yeah, and look, it's tough to make super assessments on this. Now you're looking at sample sizes that are 12 and 13 matches each, right? You know, a lot of variability there too. A couple saves one way or the other. And I think if you really start to break down the expected points and expected goals and goals against data, which we'll get into a second, it kind of reveals some things too. It's a little dangerous to use those numbers too, knowing that we have a very good keeper in Jordan Pickford, and he can make a big difference on the goals against angle. But look, I mean, the whole point of XG and derived measures from XG is the general theory that finishing normally balance itself out over time. You know, very few players can truly exceed their XG, and that's why arguably it's more important to create more. Finishing comes and goes, and we saw a little bit of that today. And over time, as the numbers go, I mean, XG is not some fake number or measure. I mean, we know it converges. It just does. It's just math, folks. But I gotta admit, though, you know, and maybe you'd have to really unpack some of the strength of schedule stuff, but I do think just in general, this team may struggle a little bit more, kind of being on the front foot, trying to play with the ball a little bit more than they would playing behind the ball, even if the game state numbers don't kind of indicate one way or the other. And I guess, guys, is it illogical to say, I mean, you can look at the results here, is it illogical to say that some teams are just built to play better in certain ways than others? And I will say a fair critique of Moyes is that he can't dictate games too often. Like, he doesn't have like that really distinct style of play. And we saw it today, like Ariola's teams play exactly the same way almost every time with a wrinkle or two. And I would actually argue that Bournemouth showed a little bit stronger identity when they were playing kind of in between the posts. But you would expect a little better home form, right? I mean, it does kind of see. I mean, maybe there's some mental aspects of this too. I mean, what do you guys think? Is this probably not enough information to really make a conclusion? Or do you feel like there's some trends here?
I don't know if it's enough information, but I also think too, on one hand, the team's starting to find a way to come back in games, right, where that was their biggest issue. And then vice versa, like you look at the Wolves result, you look at a few others where they have a 1-0 lead, everything looks great, and you don't take advantage of your chances, and then kind of a goal out of nowhere comes out, and it's almost like the team is just shell-shocked, right? And it's I don't know if there's a lot to explain for it. I think the personnel, I think there's a lot of different factors, game state, etc. But it is one of those things that I think the team on one hand has fixed an issue of finding a way to get back in games. And not to say even today, right? They showed a really good competitive spirit to find a way to get a draw. But then on the same token, this team like almost mentally shuts off at certain points, and almost every time they get punished for it.
A thought. Losing Jack Grealish is important from controlling the match standpoint. I feel like a lot of our orientation relies on Jack, and he can hold the ball. It's an interesting thought, and if you're not going to control a match with the ball through tactics, and even the guys that do it through tactics have good players as well. So maybe that's had a bigger impact than we realize. I'll say this today, though. I think some of the tactics still aren't necessarily going our way, and it may beg to ask the question, are we utilizing our players as well as we should? That being said, today was one of those moments where, getting to our second talking point, kind of hard done. The one thing that we joke about in XG is everyone has that conversation after the match, like, man, I thought we had the better chances. Well, that's pretty much all the measure does, right? Or at least attempts to capture. And today was especially harsh, I think.
Yeah, our second point, and this is kind of said really well by Sleazy Toffee, XG gods reminded us that free will is an illusion and they are the ultimate deciders of our fate. We dominated most of the game but paid for our mistakes. It happens. And what he's essentially referring to is an XG of 2.91, which on recent memory is our highest XG in some time, right? Against an XG of 1.33 for Bournemouth. And I mean, just 3 days ago, right, we kind of had the same conversation, Ryan, of just a team that dominated us for most of the match. Unlucky to probably not be up 2 or 3-0. They don't take advantage of it. They kind of, have this moment of shut off. Almost similarly, right, the team makes subs and they score. And so it's just, sometimes it is reversion of the mean. I think we talked about sustainability, right, and how many of these results are sustainable. Oddly enough, it comes on a day, right, where we actually play pretty well and just get punished for it. And I hate to say it, it's a weird moniker, but that's football.
Yeah, I think there's also something to be said for the drop-off in player personnel and being able to use players differently to kind of sustain things through injuries, through changes, having the players to adapt in match. And I think that goes to the third point here. And I think this is an interesting comment from Nick Weinstein, and it's a quote from the Discord to say, most concerning thing to me is we have about 70 million plus worth of this past summer signings on the bench and not in the squad that can't get a sniff of game time. And I think this is a fair point. It seems like there's a group of guys that just simply aren't even options at this point. And I don't quite understand that. Whether it's a change in shape, whether it's a change just in approach, but guys, what is going on? Tyler Dibbling today is not seeing the match. Like, you ripped Tyler Dibbling in the press, fine. Told him he needs to respond and do things differently. Hasn't seen the pitch since. Asnu doesn't even make the bench. That's worth a conversation too. Merlin Roll, even Patterson. So a quote I had in here was, Stylo makes this comment out on Twitter. Asnu and Roll have each played 0 minutes since having their respective best games for us. I'd argue Patterson had one of his best games for us last appearance and hasn't seen the field yet. So I feel like Moyes might be shooting himself in the foot a little bit in this point. Like, what made these guys an alternative before and now suddenly they've not become one? We'll get to lineups in a second, but I feel like he can maybe get a little bit more. I think he's getting plenty out of the team. I really think David Moyes is doing a decent job, but I don't know. I'm not seeing anything or haven't seen anything on the pitch, I think, that justifies these guys just sitting on the bench. Do you?
No, it feels very, very strange, and I think you have to manage a team in a meritocratic way. And coming off a great game, Merlin Roll against Villa, he's not given an opportunity. Charlie Alcaraz has looked very good as a sub. I think he at least deserves to be in consideration for a match like today when you concede and you're pushing for a goal. That's the exact moment when you'd expect to use him. The Dibbling thing we talk about every single week, you call the guy out in the press. I think that's when you sort of test him to then, okay, here's your opportunity. I've just put you on the spot. How are you going to respond?
He hasn't responded.
Minutes.
He's not mad enough. He needs to be angry.
He needs to be angrier. He needs to jump off the bench and wring Moyes by the neck to get onto the pitch. That's the only solution. And Patterson, same thing. Look, I'm one of the most skeptical guys of Nathan Patterson out there, but there's no question we've looked very different in terms of shape, in terms of execution when you have an actual right back. And that's not to say, look, Jake O'Brien got red carded today. Well, I think it was a little unfortunate on his part. But I also understand maybe, you're going as Bournemouth. You maybe want to control the game because they try to bring this level of chaos. And Moyes feels like that back line to start is maybe a little bit more resilient defensively. But as the game goes on, the changes or lack thereof in not giving these guys opportunities, it just feels like it has to be super demoralizing. And we spent all this money to not even get anything out of them.
Yeah, and also too, right? I think it's a bit of a slap in the face to a lot of the players for Michael Keane to come on as an attacking sub versus Tyler Dibbling and Charlie Alcaraz. As you both mentioned, the meritocracy of it all, of them having good appearances and not playing. I can understand Merlin a little bit more just because that center midfield is so crowded, but at the same time, right, from a man management perspective, he hasn't done anything wrong to not merit at least a few minutes on the pitch. And
They're pointless at this point. That's the thing that's frustrating. Like, I know it's terrible. I complained about Asnu not being on the bench, but only because I think those are positions where it's dying for more attacking impetus at times at left back. You don't have to change shape. You just put him in there. He's a little better on the ball, a little better going forward than Mikalenko. I don't think he's a bad defensive player too. I swear, man, if I see another tweet out there that says, how bad must Asnu be? No, he's not bad. The whole point of us getting Merlin Roll is we wanted like a center mid that could control a game in theory. Or Armstrong is like the same player. Fine, drop Armstrong deeper and put Charlie in. At least he could score a goal and play up on that left wing. I don't get it. Let's talk about lineups. Maybe this was his ability to counter Bournemouth. That was kind of suggested. I'm not sure if that's true or not. Bournemouth are an interesting team. I mean, think about it, though. They've had over 300 million euros in sales over this past year. I mean, they just sold Semenyo, obviously, in this January, which is a massive loss for them. He was carrying them at times. Zabarnyi, Huijsen, Kirkez, Quatara. All those guys went. I mean, those are big names for big money. But Shan, maybe can you talk us through the Bournemouth lineup? Because they still have this kind of revolving door of young talents, and they've done pretty well replacing some of these guys.
It starts with the manager, right? Andoni Iraola, really smart young manager. Rock and roll football is kind of what you get with them just because they have such energizing players. You know, Ryan Christie's kind of my thought of the Energizer Bunny. He literally will run as much as you can, but he's a good progressor of the ball. You look at their attack. Evan Nielsen, I think, is underwhelming, but which is why I was kind of happy that he started instead of Eli Junior Krupi, who's been very good for them. Ryan is just incredible business by Bournemouth to get him under 30 million. Euros from Vasco da Gama, 19 years old, right? It's just the world is at his feet, and you saw it today, of course, with the goal. I mean, Adley has been a really solid signing from Bayer. Of course, took his time to get used to the Premier League, but has done a pretty good job, and you saw the goal today. Alex Toth getting his kind of first start for them. And then you talk about the wing backs. I mean, you talk about just incredible. Adrian Truffert, immediate upgrade on Milos Kerkez. And then Alex Jimenez, also somebody that they locked down this week. Just another young, really good right back. And you really saw the best qualities of him today. Imagine him and Jack Grealish on the same team, just kind of, playing Jedi mind games on the opponent, right? It just makes you really just kind of salivate over the thought of Everton having these kind of quality in these positions. And Petrovic has been very error prone this season, so it makes you feel good going against a guy like that, because if you get him on a normal day, he's probably going to give up a goal.
That was not today, unfortunately. He made some mistakes, but not in saving a football, that's for sure. One interesting wrinkle today in the Everton lineup, huh, James?
Yeah, I mean, we get the Jack Grealish replacement, Tyreek George, immediately into the starting lineup after a brief cameo at the weekend against Fulham. We just finished opining about the young players who can't seem to break through in this team, but maybe he's now 20, so he's no longer 19, so therefore he meets the age threshold to go straight in and get his opportunity. Look, whatever it is, I mean, obviously he's impressed Moyes both in the match at the weekend and in what he's seen of him so far and what he knows about the player. But what was very strange to me, and I really don't understand this, is I know Njai has been decent off the right for us in terms of scoring goals and impacting games, but to displace your arguably best outfield player and most dynamic attacking threat to go on the right so that you can bring on the guy you just signed on the left, when in theory both of them can play either position, that one really shocked me. I was very much expecting Njai on the left and George to play off the right. Otherwise, we have Jared Branthwaite, of course, working his way back to full fitness. You guys talked about it at the weekend against Fulham. Glad to see him given a full start as he makes his way back to 100%.
Yeah, I just don't understand George off the left here. You shade Dewsbury Hall over to his side. You attack everything down the left, 44% of the time down the left. How on earth does that makes no sense whatsoever. Now, you could argue, well, Bournemouth controlled the game a bit. But Bournemouth aren't just pure possession or anything. They play a lot of long balls. That being said, it's just a slap in the face to these guys. The Tyreek George comes in the door and immediately goes right into the lineup. What has he done to justify that? It's been 3 or 4 days in training. Is he that much more direct? Is he that much more angry in training? It doesn't make any sense to me. If you're going to tack down the left, put NJ in and place freaking Tyler Dibbling on the right side. I don't get it.
Do we think it's like inflexibility on Moyes because so much of Everton's attack this season has been focused down the left-hand side, and you just plug and play another guy and you just stick with that formula, and you're not really going to be able to attack much through Jake O'Brien. You put a ton of pressure on Mikolenko to provide attacking output, and a lot of pressure on George in his first full start. It feels a little bit, Moyes has his idea of what his best lineup is. He's going to try to play that lineup if everyone's fit with minimal changes unless he's forced to do otherwise. And George as the left wing, new left wing, just kind of gets slotted in there, and there's no major stylistic change in terms of the attack.
I don't know, but either Charlie's really hurt, and if that's the case, he shouldn't be on the bench. You can have Asnu on the bench to give you an alternative. Not that he'd play him anyway, but you cannot tell me that Charlie Alcaraz shouldn't have been playing over Tyreek George. That's ludicrous, man. Like, I'm sorry. I've watched Tyreek George play a bunch now. He is nowhere near ready to just be plugged into the Premier League, and we saw it today. And look, I'm all for playing the young guys. I think that's totally fine. But you can't, on one hand, play this whole meritus playing time nonsense and then slot this guy right in. Why? Because you just bought him and you liked him? There's no way anyone could possibly convince me that the best lineup to go win a match based on merit is Tyreek George starting on the left side. Don't get angry at George for this either, too. He's just a kid, man. So you shouldn't expect a whole lot from him. Clearly there's something going on that would indicate that these guys can't get a match. But it surely isn't because Tyreek George is a lot better player than them. I've said all along, I think this is a mid-table team. We're not making Europe or any of that nonsense. But I was excited to see the young players progress. And I'm happy that we've acquired yet another young player and seeing some of them play. But Harrison Armstrong's playing on the wing. Like, Jake O'Brien still plays it right back. And now Dibbling is resigned to the bench. Asnu can't even make the bench. Roll doesn't sniff the field because he's basically the same as Armstrong at this point. Even Tim. We haven't even seen Tim again.
Where is the wizard? Where's the enchanter?
Wizard and the enchanter are both sitting on the bench practicing their spells. Like,
that's right.
Back to Hogwarts or something?
Yeah.
Work on their stuff? Do they need to get their wands out? And I don't even like Harry Potter, but
Wingardium Leviosa would
shouldn't have said
get them on
that.
the pitch.
Shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, just want to put that out there.
We start things off in the first half, and it is the torrential downpour on the docks in Liverpool. It's definitely sloppy early from both sides. Bournemouth probably start maybe the first 5 minutes a little bit better. They have a couple of long shots and a set piece, but nothing really noteworthy. And then Everton, right around 5 minutes, start to create some threatening moments. We get a corner that's dangerous. Ghana kind of hits it back on the far side. NJ actually scores, but it's offside, so it's ruled out, rightfully so. And as you get past the first 10 minutes, through the first 15 or so, I think Everton's level of intensity, I think at home, Moyes has tried to come out and press aggressively in certain matches to start. And I think the conditions aided Everton here, but Bournemouth were only like 64% pass accuracy through 14 minutes. You could tell both the conditions and the pressure were making it hard for them to execute and move the ball around effectively.
A lot of heavy touches, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stuff that it almost looked a little uncharacteristic at times. But look, I mean, eventually you knew the game was going to open up, and there were a lot of chances in this match in general.
Yeah, so we get to the 28th minute, and Amin Adli cleans out Kieran Dewsbury Hall, giving us a really good opportunity with the free kick. And Jimmy Garner takes it. It's actually a really good take in regards to the swerve on the ball. Might not have been the Dom swerve, but it's a tricky one. And Petrovic kind of really mishandles this, I would say. Can't gather, and it falls to Tierno Barry. It's a really good chance, and it just kind of really goes wide. I think one thing that I would say to this, you see 0.72 XG. It's on his left, right? So it's on the weaker foot, as well as just, I think it's just one of those where it's a bang play. You expect him to do better, but I think it's not as egregious as you would think the first time, in my personal opinion.
I think he does well to crash the net on this one and get himself in a good position. I think He's a little bit unlucky. It's on his weak foot. I think you're right on both counts, Sean. But I also just want to say a really intelligent way to take the free kick from James Garner, to play it off the ground when you know it's slick, you know the keeper's going to have a hard time reading it, and he forces an error from the keeper. I just think this is a moment, Barry, this is a huge moment in the match. Less than half an hour in, you go up 1-0, and he doesn't even get it on target. It is very, very quick reactions required to put that on net, but it is a moment where, look, we know Tierno Barry's finishing has not been super consistent, and we're punished for it here.
Has to.
0.72 XG. I know it's like context dependent and all that, but it's a glorious chance to send it 5, 6, 7 yards wide is not a good look.
Yeah, and in this one, I mean, I'll give him credit for being Johnny on the spot in this one. You know, sometimes you got to give the center forwards credit for the contribution of the creation. You know, not people miss chances though. It does happen. I mean, it's not, and I feel like he had made a couple in succession here. Like I feel like he's almost outperformed his XG leading into this one. It's just a shame. I mean, you could tell he was very upset by it. He was not having the best match, I would argue, even if he was making himself available. I think this chance in the 30th, in many ways, is a pretty big chance too. It's obviously not as dangerous an opportunity here, but this ball falls to Njai off a big cross from Dewsbury Hall, and we've seen Dewsbury Hall be dangerous firing crosses from that side. Falls through to Njai, and he doesn't have an open net or anything because he's got a bad ankle. Petrovic does phenomenally well here, I think, to get to the post, make himself big, and make the save, because it was a pretty good shot by Njai, too. I mean, this could have been a goal, too. I mean, these are two pretty big chances.
I think this is one of the saves of the season, and it might not be talked about as such, but the way he tracks like so well horizontally, and just for him to get his body position in a place where you see how difficult the save is because it almost still goes in, right? So I think just the way that the shot was, I don't really fault Njai at all. I mean, what more can you do in that spot?
It's a good shot.
I just think it's a really good shot. It's just an incredible save, and I just, as much as we got lucky last week, Ryan, with Bernd Leno, I think unfortunately another really good home save has occurred.
It's a really good cross from Dewsbury Hall as well. Like behind the defense, takes everyone out of the play. Very good execution by Njai there. And then Bournemouth have a couple of chances kind of responding. Jimenez has a nice little short cross, and Branthwaite's actually there to block the shot. And then Tyreek George with a pretty bad giveaway to Jimenez. This one makes its way eventually to Evan Nilsson, kind of right in the 6-yard box, and it takes a slight deflection. Pickford centrally is able to make the save. And again, this is like all within the space of 10 minutes, from the 28th to the 37th, and then in the 39th, just 2 minutes after that, it's the penalty for Everton. And it's Jared Branthwaite winning a penalty of all people. Ryan, welcome to the big leagues, buddy. Tried to carry it out of a dangerous area, maybe not the wisest play in that moment. Branthwaite pushed way up on his back, wins the ball back, and then loses his head a little bit, lack of composure. Ryan fouls him, and it looked like James Garner was going to take the penalty. Maybe he was just protecting the spot, but Njai eventually steps up, and not going to be too many more beautifully taken penalties. I mean, he places it bottom corner. Petrovic guesses right. There's nothing he can do about it.
But he didn't put the laces through, James.
Placement.
Yeah. Well, he has his head up too. I mean, and he'll do the stutter step thick every now and then if the keeper reacts. This is one of those plays where I don't know if Rayan has never dealt with the center back with this type of length and athleticism, because JB kind of comes out of nowhere here, and it is. I mean, it's astonishing that he's that athletic, that can kind of get in front of him, get on the ball. And he does foul him, and JB does well to fall over and stay on the ground to make sure. They'd already awarded the penalty. It's like, you can get up now. But he stayed down. I can't say this was super undeserved at this point, though. We had a couple big chances here. We get into halftime, and again, the penalty is driving a lot of the XG here, too. But we had two big chances, and you could argue maybe they had the little better of play in between those chances, but football is about goals, and I think we certainly felt still pretty good being up 1-0 after that half. Do we agree?
Yeah, it felt good. I thought, overall, like you mentioned earlier, I thought our press was much more tactical in its execution, so I just felt like there were points in the game. Of course, they were ugly, but it didn't feel like anything got out of hand. I think the Evan Nielsen chance was good defending, right? So that was pretty much the only time I felt really threatened. But it's just, once again, just Bournemouth. They have a good collective bunch of young players and attackers. So for us, as we talked about at the beginning of the pod, how is this team going to have these mental lapses and if defending a lead, right? Because I think that's where a little bit of my concern is at home, and it just shows kind of that we made the same mistake again. Of course, the first goal really well taken, but the second one.
And it could have been 2-0 at half two. I mean, that's a thought. Much like we had last week, I think, James, you were talking off air a little bit about the Fulham match. It wasn't, we didn't dominate the way Fulham dominated us in the first half, but when you don't take your chances, and we did. We took one. We made the penalty, which was maybe nothing that was really built up of deserving a penalty or anything, but we're up 1-0. If you're up 2-0, it's a totally different game plan. But I would say this, I think we came out with a little bit of impetus here. It wasn't like we were sitting back, and Petrovic makes this insane giveaway in the 48th, and we almost go up 2-0.
Yeah, it's Njai. He kind of just gifts it. It's actually Njai jumping on it pretty well. It's not quite as bad of a giveaway for Petrovic, but doesn't read the play very well. Njai gets the shot off. It's saved. It's parried. Dewsbury Hall ends up winning the ball back from Bournemouth almost immediately after and forces another great save from Petrovic. Leads to a corner.
Or the block, right? That one was the block,
yes.
right? Because that was a good shot, too. Who blocked it? Was that Jimenez again? It might have been.
I think it was. He was everywhere.
He was a terror today. My goodness. But that was one where you're like, oh, man, you want to take advantage of that mistake. But, they scrambled together and made good play and defended it well enough. And then it leads to the corner, right?
Yeah, and George ends up getting the ball kind of near the touchline. It's a nice little move, maybe his one highlight of the night, perhaps, to beat his man on the end line and earn another corner. It's, again, good pressure from Everton, not relenting, not going into this sort of going into their shell, letting Bournemouth just attack relentlessly. It's another, again, a good corner to the near post. George flicks it across the face of goal, but it ends up getting cleared. And there's another moment here. This is the big one.
This is the big one to me.
This is pretty much the game, right? In the 53rd. Barry does so well in the build-up to find Njai. And Njai, the patience and execution, I think he megs the defender to play this ball back into Barry's path. And it's a point-blank chance. And again, Jimenez, out of nowhere. It's a fantastic anticipation and recovery to make the block, but you still have to say, for Tierno Barry, that's two chances, virtually point-blank. If he finishes either of them, we're probably home free.
I don't put that on Barry at all. I think it's a phenomenal block. I think it comes out of nowhere and blocks, and I think Barry's going to bury it. I do. I really do. I just think it's just a little bit bad luck. The first one, it's a big miss off the rebound. This one, I don't blame Barry at all for it. It's a great block. Maybe you could argue, well, his awareness should have been there. Should have pulled the trigger more quickly. I think that's a little bit harsh. Sometimes you got to tip your hat to the defender. That's just my opinion. It's not like he missed the target or anything from here. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's a good defensive play either way to some element. But yeah, I just don't put this one on him. I just think it's a phenomenal play.
Yeah, Ryan, it's funny because I disagreed with you before I looked at it 10 times, and then you see that he's tucking it in near post. If Jimenez doesn't block it, it probably is going to go in. I think really the only criticism is actually the far post looks like it's an easier option just because there's so much more to hit. But then again, right, it's a great play, and it's just unfortunate. I think that's really what it comes down to.
Well, think about it. He came all the way across his body to block it going in the near post. If he opens up and looks to go to the far post, he probably sees the player. Right. But he
comes so quickly.
Easier,
yeah, he had more time than the first chance. But Jimenez, I think, and not to hate on the short guys. I'm a short guy myself. You don't see him. So it's just he basically got there without almost just not. It was just one of those where you really see it and you're like, wow, how did he get there?
There's some fortune there too. Yeah. Because think about it. So he turns and looks at the near post. That's where he's going. He makes up his mind, and it looks like he's going in. Just his body position makes it harder to see the player of all things. And it's just unfortunate. But what a phenomenal play by Njai. It just goes to show you that Njai, you put him in the right spots repeatedly. He has such a nice mix of creativity as well as goal scoring. And I like him a little better off the left, but this is just kind of a bummer. Such a cool play and such an interesting play, and I think we all want to see Barry do well. But when we didn't score off a couple of these chances, I'm sure you guys were thinking just that I was. This is not a bad team we're playing, and you're thinking, Oh boy, here it comes. You got to finish these chances, and I'm curious what you all think here. We'll talk about the Trufford hit and then the penalty shout. I'm curious your thoughts on these two plays.
Well, Ryan, I want to say you may have said that you saw it coming, but in the Discord you said shortly before this all happened that Bournemouth do not look like scoring,
and they did.
It wasn't
and they did
5 minutes later that all
yeah.
this starts to take a very negative turn. So I'm not saying it's your fault. But
yeah, you did say it's my fault, actually.
I
in the
did,
Discord.
but I'm not saying
I was
it now.
just making an observation. Yes,
I mean,
I
you
should have
basically
knocked on
scored
wood
the
or
first
something.
goal for them, Ryan.
I did.
So,
It was basically me.
Yeah,
I was lying to make you feel better. It is your fault.
That's fine. I'm okay with that. At least when I travel overseas to watch. Anyway,
right.
Yeah, there it is.
Let's keep
Take
it pushing.
Anyway, so in the 54th minute, I don't like this play at all because Trufford has this hit. We know his left foot is very good. He's totally dominant on it. And he doesn't really get closed down at all. And I don't understand why. I mean, he's no threat to go the other way. He's not going to dance by you. And he hits it very well. I don't think this is going to be pick either way, but it's a more dangerous chance than they've had in a bit here. And then there's the penalty shot here where Ryan just blows by Mikalenko, turns the corner on him. Guys, I think this is a penalty. I think he snips him on the back, and I think you have to call that. I don't understand why he didn't. Madley was confident that it wasn't one. Up front, you could argue, well, there's not enough to change the call. It's not clear and obvious. And presumably he was in enough angle to see the little bit of contact at the end and make the call himself. So good for him. He wants to stick with the fine, doesn't want to go to the monitor. But I actually think this is a penalty. Would have been a little harsh, but ours was a little harsh too. Thoughts? Penalty? No penalty?
I think the way that he just toasts Mikalenko, leaves him in the dust, puts Mikalenko in a really tough position where he's trying to be push the limits of how physical you can be when you're totally out of position. But I do think Ryan kind of just trips himself up with his hind leg coming up and hitting Mikalenko's leg. So in that way, I think it's the right call. There's a bit of a
hind
shirt
leg?
pull.
What is he, a horse?
Yeah, his hind leg. His leg hits going backwards, whatever. Semantics. Fair enough. Yeah, he was running like a horse. He blew by Mikalenko like a racehorse.
True. There was a gallop there.
So I think whichever calls on the field stands in this case. And I think I'm happy it went that way, and I can see why live you would say he kind of tripped himself up.
I think what helps also too is Mikalenko, I think, had a little bit more consciousness, right? Like once he blew by him to try to avoid the contact, whereas Ryan in the earlier play just completely bulldozed JB. And so I think just from the ref's point of view, because I'm kind of on the fence on this one. If it got called, I really wouldn't have too much to argue, but the fact that it didn't, I'm trying to kind of, from our perspective, see why. And that's really, I think, the only thing I can get, because most places that's a foul, but I almost think it's kind of one where the defender's trying to be a bit more conscious of hitting him. Of course, he ends up doing so, but it's not like him just completely barging into the defender like Allison did to Nunez the other day. So
yeah, it's not the same for sure. The JB one is more of a penalty for sure. I agree with that. Curious your guys' thoughts on the double sub here. I mean, they brought in some serious firepower off the bench. Ines Unal has had a lot of issues with injuries and whatnot, but when he's fit, he is a very good footballer and has shown in his limited time when he's been in the Premier League. And Sean, I feel like you like Krupi a lot.
Oh, he's great. He's fox in the box, but I also think somebody that is just so creative with the ball. I think his interplay with some of the other players, you get more of that than you would from Evan Nielsen. You won't get the hold-up play that you would from Evan Nielsen, but I also don't think that was their strategy. So for me, I was concerned, right, because I was happy that Krupi was on the bench. Like you mentioned with Enes Unal, a lot of injuries, but when he's healthy, he's effective. So I think just the way they take Evan Nielsen off the pitch, it's a massive upgrade. And then for whatever reason, just recent history, anytime a sub happens, a goal happens.
So weird,
that's
isn't
not
it?
good on this end. And it's just, I know there's going to be criticism. Anytime Everton let up a goal, there's always someone to blame. Personally, I think this is a really good goal. I don't really see so many times during a match, right? A defender or the offender will get past the other person to get across. This is just put in the perfect spot. It's put to a place where it's fading away, where Mikalenko, right? I know it's easy to kind of, throw stones at the guy, but this is not his fault in any way. Nothing Pickford could do. It's just, and it's a really, it goes to the perfect guy because Ryan's build, he just gets so much of, it's a perfect header just with so much power. And it's just one of those where you just tip your cap, in my opinion, to the other team, because I just think it's a well-worked goal.
James, is there nothing that can be done, James, to stop this goal? According to Shan, that's what I heard. It's not exactly what you said, but I'm curious your take on it. I mean, I think you can critique any goal, but yeah, it's a good play.
It's like anytime we score, it's like it was a great build-up, all these amazing plays, but the opposition would say our defenders, drop the ball. I think Njai, looks to have slipped maybe marking Truffert, but it's a good move. I mean, he is a good attacking player. He can get forward, and he places it perfectly. I think Mykolenko, though that's the guy he should be marking at the far post, he's kind of backing up, and it's hard to get vertical there, whereas Ryan is kind of running onto it. Also, you're telling me this guy's 19, he's built like a truck. Like he's a monster. And he gets so much power on the header. Pickford also kind of reacts late. It's just perfectly placed at the far post. I mean, there's very little you could do except prevent the cross from coming in. And I think Njai is just kind of taken out of the play due to the conditions there.
Yeah, I think there's some team defensive breakdowns here a little bit, though. I mean, Njai's mark in Truffert lets him get all the way on his right and take a cross. If he's overplaying him to his left, I get that. Where's the cover? Jake's too deep. He's not going out there and helping him. And I think that would have been helpful, to have that inside. Because Njai, yeah, he did slip, but he's giving him the inside a little bit. He's expecting some help there or something, and knowing he's on his weaker foot. By the way, that's a cross off your weak foot. I mean, my goodness. Mykolenko, I think, loses his man a little bit. Maybe could have backed into him, turned, faced the player a little bit, and jammed him. And Pick maybe could have been quicker, but I mean, the quality of the cross, quality of the header is just top flight. I mean, those are just two moments of absolute quality. And last match, look, we had the same thing. Like, we had these moments of quality, right? And sometimes in these matches that are kind of a toss-up a little bit, that's what matters. Those moments of quality, whether it's the keeper making a great save, whether it's you not finishing, cost you whatnot, these are those key moments that make a big difference. Okay. Sub. Now, this sub was in motion before the goal was scored. And so they sub in Beto and Armstrong for Barry and George. Now, I got no problem with the like-for-like Beto for Barry sub. I thought Beto was better last match. I'm a little surprised Beto didn't start, actually, to be perfectly honest. That might have been a good idea. And I think that's good to see what Beto can do at this point. I think it's fine. Armstrong for George, knowing that the game state suddenly changed, should they have kept the Armstrong sub? Because I have to think, and maybe I'm wrong because Moyes kept with the sub, that he wanted to make the Armstrong sub because of the game state. Now, that may be wrong because he started with Armstrong on, I guess, the left last match and the right before that. Thoughts on this sub in general, and would you have changed it knowing the game state changed, or would you have made it at all?
Very curious sub to me. Understand it. With leading, you're winning the match, you bring on another midfield, like to play Armstrong.
Give you a little more control, maybe, James?
100%. A little bit better on the ball. George did not have a great match, but when you're all of a sudden, presumably then looking to go win the game, to play Armstrong on the left and like keep Njai on the right, that doesn't make any sense to me. You've got a left wings, you've got Charlie there to influence the match. And look, I love Harrison Armstrong, but he's a midfielder. He's not a winger. So what are we doing here? I get he's clearly impressed Moyes. He's come in. We've got two young guys in Armstrong and George who are just arrived to Everton, are being recalled, and they're just getting all the opportunities as opposed to the guys who've been here all season. Very strange to me. Would have probably pivoted to bring not Armstrong on, or, sub one of the midfielders and bring Armstrong on for them. Let him play in his actual position.
I mean, this is the perfect opportunity to bring somebody like Charlie on, right? Because for me, it's 1-1, right? I can, like James said, I don't agree with it, but it makes a little bit more sense, right? If you want somebody that's a bit more defensively aware and somebody that's going to do some of those things that maybe the other two you don't believe would, although
there's nothing structurally going on here, right?
I mean, we're playing. It's essentially like we're playing on New York City's football ground with how inverted we are. But it's really disappointing because, I mean, I know David Moyes wants to go for the win, right? Like, there's no question in my mind about that. So it's almost counterintuitive to believe that Tyler's just a whole nother issue, but like for me, Charlie's done enough to like prove in the minutes that he's gotten that, and it goes back to the earlier point. It's like, how are these guys getting kind of almost punished for good performances and then they just kind of go MIA? So it just doesn't make sense. And I understand like he's got a tough job managing a big squad, but at the end of the day, like I think Harrison Armstrong, with the amount of football he's played in the last, month and a half, I think he'll be just fine if he doesn't come in for a game.
Yeah, I can't deny that. Or you bring him in, like when we looked at the game state changes here again, bring him in to kind of get on the ball a little bit too later. You know, there's always options for that. Yeah, this got to be Charlie for me. So Tyreek George, first start, 0 for 8 in duels, dispossessed 3 times, 3 bad touches, 6 turnovers, led Everton, even though he didn't even play the full match. Created really nothing. He was active. I mean, you saw some of the hints of the athleticism, the directness. James, you quoted kind of getting to the line and the cross of the left foot. That was explosive. But Jimenez killed him. I mean, really. And they're both 20 years old. I mean, Jimenez really, really had his number. And I just think that I don't think that's putting Tyreek George in a position to succeed. I think if someone's direct and that athletic and that active, he's a perfect guy to come off the bench. I would argue Charlie is too. It seems like Moyes maybe has him pegged as a left-sided player. And maybe that is his strongest position in his mind, but I don't necessarily see him any different. I mean, I see him different, but I see him playing on the right too. Barry, curious your guys' thoughts on that. I mean, only had 2 touches in the box, and they were both big chances. I cut him a break on the second one. The first one, yeah, I did really poor with that. It's only 3 for 9 in aerials. That seemed uncharacteristic. Lost most of his 2 ground duels. There just wasn't much numerical production there to speak of. Everton just weren't great necessarily from open play, and he looked crushed for missing those misses. Shan, you and I talked about this in the Discord. He missed chances, man. He's got to get over that stuff. I know he's upset, and he seems like a pretty emotional guy. Like he plays with like that, and that's great. But he's got to get over that, man. People miss chances. It's really hard to tell sometimes too on the television how a center forward's working. Especially Premier League covers, they don't necessarily give you the wide lens. There were several times he made moves and was kind of ignored. I don't know. Curious how you guys thought either of these guys played.
Yeah, it's not Barry's best game. I think the conditions affect a player like Barry a lot. Like, he wants to be a little more technical. It doesn't really explain the aerial stuff, but I think it gets kind of sloppy, and it's hard for him to control things. And not that excuses the 2 misses, but I think you have to at least consider it. But he's a young striker. He has his ups and downs. We just talked a few episodes ago about what a great goal-scoring run he'd been on. This is going to be the ups and downs of playing a young player. You have to take the bad with the good, and the idea being you accept the underperformance now for dividends in the long term as he improves. So I'm taking this as one of those matches. Yes, it probably cost us points for him not to finish those, but he was there and he was in the right spot at the right time to even get those opportunities in the first place. Otherwise, there really wasn't very much created for him. Again, he was integral in the build-up with Njai, getting the ball to him in the first place, and he crashed net to get the rebound on the free kick. So his anticipation, his skills, he's doing a lot of things right. Not every week is everything going to come off for him. This was one of those. Look, I actually agree with you, Ryan. When he's head in the shirt on the sideline, you can be frustrated, you can be upset, but you got to have a kind of resilient competitor mindset and just brush it off and move on.
And I don't want to make too much of body language. I don't know. I mean, it could be
totally 100%.
Shan's point was he was hiding from the rain.
Yeah, I think he was hiding from the rain. I mean,
I hope it wasn't that. Like, hope he's not so down on stuff like that. I do think you got to
thinking about all the mean things people are going to say about him on Twitter.
Can we talk about that? Is now the time to bring that up?
Take first, and let's talk.
Yeah, and I'll be quick. I mean, of course, besides the rain piece, part of the reason he was so devastated is he comes off and they score 2 goals, right? So it's just like there's a level of responsibility that, from like a maturity standpoint, right? I understand, where earlier in the year we were criticizing for him, some of his behavior on the pitch. He's just kind of taking that responsibility off the pitch. I think, of course, my really issue with it, is no one really. Now, of course, we only saw that, panned images. No one really kind of put an arm around him. Like, no one really supported him in that moment. I understand he's an adult, but at the same time, it's just him, I think, understanding the responsibility. And so I can appreciate that from his end, right? It's a level of accountability. I just also, too, when you watch that second miss, the level of technicality, because the ball got deflected, and for him to still serve that really good ball to Njai, right, I think goes unnoticed. So I think there's still some things that he did well that he probably won't get appreciation for. Yeah, he needs to ignore anything that gets said on social media in terms of this specific game. I think it's incredibly vile what some of our fans are saying about him. I understand he hasn't scored for a few games, but we can't just judge players and from a game-to-game basis and say that they're terrible one day and they're gonna be the next Erling Haaland. It's it's unfair to the player, and at the same time, right, like, you want them to succeed, you have to support them.
I've just always been very confused about someone that gets upset and like gets mad at a player for like missing a chance or something. I mean, the guy's trying his tail off. Like, I think he's playing really hard. I think this whole team has a lot of character and they work hard. And so,
agreed.
Like, I'm not going to get
they
mad
showed
at
it today, by the
recently
way.
his last 2 matches and today.
Absolutely. Like Mikolenko, for example, I don't think he's the greatest left back in the world. He works plenty hard. He has character. Like, I'm not going to sit there and just... I think the other problem is, too, maybe people need a corgi, Sean. Maybe people need a hug. I don't know what it is. And I feel bad. I mean, mental health's a serious thing, too. But, like, people get out on social media and just say... I would only say it's a social media thing if I hadn't also heard it in a pub.
Yeah.
You know, to be like, call someone that person. Like, it's so weird. If a guy's not good enough, like they're a terrible person, worst player ever, and you say terrible stuff about him, like the dude's trying his tail off. If he's not good, it's not his fault. It's just very bizarre behavior to me. I really wish that these people maybe could take a step back and be like, get a grip, man.
Yeah, there may be something to the fact, we're not in the stadium. There's people who view it.
You've been in the stadiums. You don't act like that.
No, I know, but I don't know. Maybe there is like just this tendency to get on players, I guess, and I don't want to.
Well, the whistling, the yelling at him. Oh, it's the worst, man. It's stupid, dude. It's stupid.
But I see kind of the same thing of like people talking about the home form and like, well, I pay good money to go to the game, and so I should be able to say whatever I want. It's like, well, are you a customer or are you a fan and supporter of this club? Because if you're a supporter, you should be cheering Barry on and applauding his effort. And
if the effort's not there, hey, look, man, if the guys are go out and dogging it,
words.
Well, okay,
yes.
But if the guys are dogging it, I actually don't mind a boo every now and then.
I'm 100% cool with that as well.
But that wasn't
some
the
of the
case
horrible
here.
stuff is just, I just think it's more sad than anything else. Like, you're entitled to do whatever you want. I see it in like.
I just don't know how a player goes from a Premier League striker to some folks to a League One striker, right? The only teams that know how to do that are Leicester and Luton Town. So, like, it's
you
just
score a goal
yeah.
or you don't score a goal.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
If you do, you're the greatest. If you don't, you're the worst.
I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of football, frankly, for some of these geniuses, and that's the concept that even the best strikers in the world miss chances. Like, it just happens, man. Like, even in go watch the guys. Like, you ever sat there and watched a pro practice? It's unbelievable how often they bury it. You put them in a game, they're going to miss some every now and then. It happens. Like, I don't know. It drives me crazy. It's just like the whole XG concept. Just fundamentally as a concept, guys miss chances. It happens. And by the way, you also have to beat a Premier League keeper too. That's why you have to put it on net. Fine, you put it on net. Try beating Petrovic when he's right in front of your face. That guy's a friggin' wall. We've seen Pickford save multitudes of matches on his own. He's almost impossible to beat when he's playing pretty well. Like, there's another Premier League player stopping them. Like Jimenez, that block is phenomenal. Anyway, we can talk about it all day. I would encourage people to not act like that, Like, It's not about getting behind the player either. It's just, don't act like a lunatic, man. Don't cuss somebody out when they're trying their best just because they didn't play well. It's not like they don't want to. Nobody's perfect. Everyone has missed chances. It happens. Grow up. There you go. That's my message.
So all that to say, we had 2 young players who maybe didn't perform their best today and were subbed off in favor of Beto and another young player in Harrison Armstrong. And not 2-3 minutes later, it's the second goal for Bournemouth, and the wheels, I think, really start to fall off. It's a free kick, another one to the far post. It's put back across the goal by Hill, and Adley's right there to bang it in. I mean, it's placed pretty well. It's a .71 XG chance, so a great chance. .99 post-shot XG. So 99% of the time, that shot results in a goal. This was no exception. And again, in the span of 6 minutes, Everton have, or 4 minutes even, have thrown away the lead, are now trailing, and there's time left to push for an equalizer. But I think the real thing here is this was reviewed by VAR for offside, and we saw some inconsistent application of the rules, which could be like a recurring segment on the show. We need like
Seriously.
a jingle to introduce it.
Well, first of all, what the heck happened here? I mean, it seemed like a total breakdown.
Yeah.
I mean,
go ahead, Sean.
For me, this take your pick because there's so much defensive frailties on this. First off, I don't know how Tark gets beaten like as the ball is just sitting there. Like James Hill just completely gets past him, right? So that's public enemy number one. Public enemy number 2 is Jordan Pickford. What is he doing? Like, it's just, I don't know why he's just kind of out there when you see so much action in the box, right? And then, of course, who's marking Amin Adli? Like, it's just kind of, it just feels like marking got completely broken down, right? I don't know if it didn't really look like a zonal scheme by any means. It just looked like Tark missing his man, Pickford just not reading the situation well at all, which, was very rare in that case. And it's just a really bad goal to give up.
What do you guys think about at GOT_TexBills comment here on Twitter? Because you talked about the inconsistency, James. Maybe you want to unpack that one a little bit for the listeners.
Yeah, from Texas Bill. Armstrong called for offside a few weeks back on a goal that was disallowed because he was involved in the play. So was Bournemouth's number 26, but they didn't call him involved. The officiating is absolute crap at this level. And it is the same type of thing. It's a very similar play. No, he doesn't touch the ball, but he jumps right in front of Adli as the ball's coming in because he doesn't touch it or because it goes beyond him. He's not involved in the play at all. And that's not even to say this is the wrong call. I think it may even be the right call, but it's like, then why was the Armstrong?
Very similar, weren't they?
And that's kind of my inclination. Is like, I actually think they get this call right. It's just, now you look back, it's like, well, why are we always the ones that come off the worst for these inconsistencies?
It's weird to me. I don't know. I mean, but the point is right. I mean, they seem very similar circumstances, man. So, like, either you're around the ball and you're part of the play or you're not. Clearly, people are reacting to the player. I mean, it's Unal. I mean, it's not. You think on some of these set pieces, he's going to be one of the guys you target. I mean, he's probably 6'2". He's a pretty big guy. I mean, you can't say he's not involved at all. It doesn't affect the play whatsoever. I mean, I don't know. It's odd. It's unfortunate. The sad part is it gets even worse here 2 minutes later.
Yeah, speaking of putting our laces through it, Jake O'Brien essentially cleans out Amin Adli. It's just a situation where playing out of position doesn't see the guy. I'm not, really upset at Jake in this moment. I think it's just a situation, like mentioned, you're playing out of position. Amin Adli does really well of just kind of getting behind him. And I know there's some conversation about this red card. I think it's as clear as a denial of goal scoring opportunity as you'll get. It doesn't help that Tarkowski is the next person to him. So, of course, from a pacing standpoint, I think he gets in pretty clearly after that. But yeah, it's just unfortunate, and it's a situation where it goes from bad to worse.
Yeah, this one's tough because, I mean, he had kind of a good angle, and then he changed his angle a little bit. He was just chasing the ball, and the ball was just perfectly paced to stay away from him long enough so that he hit the player. He's on the wrong side of the ball, changed his body position a little bit, and just took him out. Had he just gone for the ball, actually, or maybe even went to ground or something, he doesn't touch the player, he wins it, and he's fine. I agree. I think this has something to do with the position. I think it really does, chasing back on balls like that. You could say he needs to do better, but I don't know, man. Like, I just want to see him play back at center back. I mean, he was so good at center back, like man of the match quality, and you've still stuck him out at right back. But at this point, we're down. I agree. I think it's the right call. It's a foul. If it's a foul, it's pretty much a red.
Yeah.
James, what do you think? Red card?
No, I think that's exactly right. If it's a foul, and it is a foul, then it has to be a red because Tark is 10 yards in front of him in central. So he's the last man, and it's clear that he's in on goal. You may even be better off letting him go there than fouling him because he still has a lot to do, and Pickford has chances.
They just didn't see him right, at the right moment, maybe. I don't know. But you're right. If he just runs straight back to goal, he beats him. I mean, Jake could fly. Jake can
that's
run.
what I mean. So I think it's just a misread of the play, and it's a fraction of a second that makes all the difference here. But regardless, he's sent off. I do think it's just a one-match suspension for the foul, so we'll have to deal with that against Manchester United. But, you take that period of play where it probably couldn't have gone much worse for Everton. And then you look at the ensuing 72nd minute on, and I actually was pretty pleased with how Everton responded and pushed for the equalizer. I mean, you're looking at 10 shots to 0 with 10 men, 3/4 of the ball, 4 corners to 0, and won 14 aerials to their 5. You couldn't have asked. We talk about the resilience of this team and coming from behind and all this sort of stuff in recent matches. You don't do yourself any favors with the performance for a short period of time, but you course correct and you push for the equalizer, and ultimately it didn't happen, but you can't fault them for their effort here.
It's a lot of aerial stuff. I mean, 14 aerials, that's indicative of us having the ball a lot and pinging crosses in, long ball to Mikalenko, cross in, header, Enja. Beto, I think the swing into Beto, too, in the 78th, he probably could have done a little better with that. We've seen him hit some really good headers and miss-hit some other ones, but that's a Premier League, right? You're going to have to hit something terrific to beat someone like Petrovic, especially the way he was playing. A couple free kicks in there, direct onto it as well. Ghana has a chance in the 86. He smokes this ball, but gets deflected and blocked into a corner. And then you had the other one. Mikalenko beats his man off the dribble again, which is pretty interesting now. Suddenly he's just starting to do that. I think the biggest, craziest thing about this was in the 90th minute, Moyes finally makes a sub. Now, he hasn't made a sub since the 62nd. So we've already ran through the gambit of all the people he could have done, but even after the red card, man, you don't make it. Almost every time a red card happens in the Premier League or any top league, they make a change or a formation or make a sub. And you got Armstrong in there. You could have dropped him back. You could have done a lot of different things. He doesn't do anything. Again, you could look on it and say, 10 shots to 0. They were contributing, but his sub is Michael Keane for Mikalenko, basically to throw Keane up top. And I get it. We're firing balls in, crosses and whatnot. But really? Really? That's it? That's all you got? That's a little disappointing there, right? This is a little bit on David Moyes, I think.
I think it has to be. I think with the options that you now have, we roasted Deitch at the time for making this type of sub. It just reeks of pure desperation. And okay, in stoppage time, down a goal, you're desperate just inherently. But we have much better options off the bench than Sean Dyche had or previous managers have had. Michael Keane is a good finisher, no denying that, but it just felt like kind of a capitulation or a real desperate move from a manager that could have had a couple extra cards up his sleeve, in my opinion.
Maybe he was reading the game fairly well, seeing how it was going, and just get another head in there, whatnot.
A lot of corners, it's a lot of set pieces, so I do get it, but I don't know.
You could have subbed some other guys in there, too. For God's sakes, even for likes at this point.
I think
those days were over.
Yes, right. Why not? Or drop Armstrong back and put in another. Charlie's a good goal scorer. Those second balls, he could have got on and buried one. But would you say, Sean, he just didn't do enough to change the story, would you say?
Yeah. The counterpoint, right, to what you just said, Ryan, is they fought hard, and I think from the 72nd on, they dominated. But at the same time, right, you look at just the personnel, Ghana was just kind of a sitting duck for most of that, right? So why not get somebody even like Merlin, where there's some size in the box, right? Of course, he's not really the aerial threat that you'd think, but also from a possession standpoint, you're getting the exact same, but you're getting fresh legs.
Yeah.
So for me, I just think I try to give as much grace as I can to David Moyes on game state and whether he uses or doesn't use guys. But there's almost every reason in the world for a guy like Merlin or Charlie or even Tyler to come on, and especially on the 90th minute that you're telling me that Michael Keane is kind of an option where it's I think you've tried every aerial that you can. It's just not working. Find a way to get direct. Maybe you get a place where you get a free kick in a good situation. So it's just disappointing because as much as we dominated, as much as I appreciate the collective spirit of the team, it just feels like one where you have an opportunity to use your bench and you just don't use it.
Yeah, and I think in some cases people are blaming David Moyes for some aspect of these results. I think that's a little harsh. When you take a step back and look at the whole match, 2.91 expected goals versus 1.33. Yes, the penalty's in there. He had 37 touches in the box compared to Bournemouth's 14th. And a lot of this stuff is coming from set pieces. From open play, Everton only generated 0.77 XG. Bournemouth was 0.59. Okay, but set pieces count. And we've got monsters back there. You would expect us to do well. We had those two really big chances, though, that just didn't go. It's just funny that Petrovic is 30th coming into this, according to Y-Scout, in the Premier League in prevented goals. Negative 4.43. And I was a huge fan of his in MLS. I followed his career a lot. He was fantastic at Strasbourg. He's a good goal stopper, shot stopper. Giving up the second most goals in the Premier League, I think, for a goalkeeper. And today, he only gets beat with the penalty versus an post-shot expected goal of 2.58. And that's a big reason why Bournemouth aren't better. They've got the same amount of points as Everton now, but they're 7th in expected points. So, look, there were some good performances from Everton. I thought Njai was still pretty good. Moyes made some comments afterwards that he was a little slow from Africon, but he did create two big chances, had the penalty, another good shot, which is a great save. Dribbles weren't as good. He still had 4 passes in the final third and 8 touches in the box and 8 recoveries. there's some production there. James, you thought JB played pretty well, and I would agree.
Yeah, first of all, just having Jared in there over Michael Keane, even at 50%, I think Jared's an improvement. As he gets closer to 100%, we'll continue to see that huge gap just widen. But today, Jared, he had 6 clearances. He won all his duels, 6 for 6 in ground duels, 2 for 2 in aerials. Or rather, I think he was 4 for 4 in ground, 2 for 2 in aerial. Long ball distribution, I think, was better in the first half, but he was 4 for 9 overall. And just working his way back to fitness. So glad to see him in this Everton team. I think he improves us dramatically, and hope he can continue to stay fit. And Shan, you went with the obvious pick that no one saw coming.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Bluist, who put a comment in the Discord that Jimmy Garner looked like a damp rat today. I can't really disagree with that, but I still think he put in a great performance. Per usual, just my guy, Jimmy Garner. 4 recoveries, 4 clearances, 3 for 5 in ground duels, 5 for 8 in crosses, 96% pass accuracy, 0.47 XA. So once again, I think the set pieces also too did a really solid job of getting some great ones in the box. Even as you guys mentioned, the one to Jared, I thought hits his head perfectly, just a little bit unlucky. But also one thing that we didn't talk about, they had a few breakaways, right, in that kind of play, and there was one where he had a really good read to stop it. Of course, you could argue that the Bournemouth player should have made a better pass, but just kind of one of those plays that would have went under the radar. If we ended up tying the game, of course we lose. But just I thought a solid performance, but it's kind of hard to choose these type of performances when you lose.
Some of the listener comments too, James, reflected some of the things that we've already talked about, obviously. The lack of subs in general too. Everton is still last in the Premier League in subs with 82. I mean, the average is almost 104. Bournemouth have made 114 even after selling 300 million euros of players. ZXYQU, I'm not going to try and pronounce it again. His comment in the Discord, I think, sums it up pretty well. Classic trap game, have to finish your chances. Some people don't know what a trap game is, I think, if you're not American. I wouldn't call this necessarily a trap game, but I get it. I mean,
I think Bournemouth at home is now a trap game for us. It was away, we won away, but...
it's just not a good game for us anytime we play these
trapped.
guys aren't convinced.
Just,
did you?
I felt trapped. Yeah.
Do you feel free now as we're halfway through the pod?
No, I still
halfway. I hope we're not halfway.
Yeah, exactly. This will be the longest pod ever. Anyway, yeah, our inability to make changes to deal with the changing game state is horrific. It must be contractual at this point to not use subs. Finally, a deep bench where Azanu doesn't even make it, and we sub Kino in the 90th as an attacking sub. Wild coaching decisions. Again, we beat this one in the ground, but I think that it's compounded by the fact that you have some options. You know what I mean? Yeah, we're beating a dead horse, and as my wife would say, and jumping on it. She likes to be redundant. The other thing, too, that's hard to look at this, too, when I look at our recruitment in the summer, we have all these guys that we don't use that we got. And we still didn't buy any fullbacks. And you're not even putting Asnu in there. And when you see Jimenez on loan, he's only 20. They're going to sign him permanently if they haven't already done so, about 20 million euros, maybe less. And Truffert walked into the Premier League at about 14 million, 13 million euros. And if that's the type of business you can do, I just don't want to hear any more of these excuses. There wasn't the right guy. I mean, that just seems simple and silly to me. Comments about David Taylor's tweet here at dtaylor334 about Europe, which, I mean, the optimism train says we're going for Europe, right? But no, in all seriousness,
I want to be very clear. I have never said that.
It's a joke.
I don't raise my voice at all, but I want to be very clear that I have never said that we are going to Europe. People put words in my mouth plenty of times in the Discord. This is my statement. We are not going to Europe.
Well, David Taylor agrees with you, Sean, it seems like. His comment is, can we stop talking about Europe now? Even if we did squeak in, there is no transfer window that would make us ready next season. Spurn chances and our defense unable to track runners, beyond disappointing. And that might be a little bit on the extreme. I mean, I think there could be a transfer window, but that's basically my concern. And I think our concern all season is, if you get into Europe with this current team, you have to really potentially overextend yourself in the summer. Like so many other teams. Look at Forest. Look at what other teams have done to try to cope with a quick ascent to Europe. It tends to backfire more often than not, especially if you don't have the right recruitment team in place. And I think we could argue the jury's still out on our current recruitment team.
I think if you get Europa, maybe you can generate the revenue. The Conference League just doesn't generate the revenue. But that being said, I just feel like we're going to have some outs this summer too. If you kept everyone you had, but I mean, some of these guys are gone. I mean, It's obvious. There's a whole litany of them. That's its own pod. We don't necessarily need. Join the Discord, man. We talk about this stuff 24/7, man. Andrew Malone here at _Bugsy_. One of the few poor home results I can't really pin on Moyes, although that second half was made for Alcaraz. Awful finishing and a couple of shocking pieces of defending to blame. And I think he's right in terms of there were these key moments. I think he's right that you can't just blame Moyes when you look at the overall production and performance and you think we probably should have won. But everyone makes something. It could have made more subs. Maybe could have made a difference. It's hard to judge this type of stuff. You know what I mean, guys? I think it's difficult. It's unbelievable how confident people are in some of these opinions. But there's good and bad today.
There's always things you can do, but there's no question, I think, on the whole, you look at the body of work David Moyes has done this season, he's got us well overperforming in most cases, especially away that we talked about at the start. So you take the good with the bad, you recognize this is a team in transition, and you realize it's part of a journey to a, hopefully, better end destination, and we're just kind of along for the ride at this point. You're going to have your ups and downs.
And we're probably closer to, look, we're 13th in expected points. We keep using that metric just because it's a convenient, easy one. It's not a perfect metric, but I mean, we're +5, basically, goal differential and understat. And it's the 4th highest differential in the league. So we've had our share of fortune. Now, you could argue like we're plus almost 11, 10.52 in goals against versus expected goals against. But some of that's Pickford, though. Like, so you can't say... even post-match, Arioli even said a draw would be a fair result, and he thought the performance wasn't great. And it's something to be said where you take a team like Bournemouth out of what they do very well, and they're a long ball, they're a very direct team, playing into our back line. That's why I said at one point, I'm like, man, they don't look at all like scoring. Again, my fault. I know it's really my fault. So, but that's why. And so you got to give Moyes some credit on that, but man, Moyes is also just dejected after the match. Did you guys see the responses he had to Paddy's question about the home form? It was something like, we played good Premier League teams and it's really nothing. And then Joe, like, comments on refereeing, like, no opinions on referees anymore. I almost felt bad for him. And then I remembered that he didn't make a sub from the 62nd minute to the 90th, and he kept
Did he have his head in his shirt?
Well, if he was, then I'd been a lot more concerned about him. Unless he was just trying to avoid the rain, Sean. The schedule does not get rosy going forward, guys. I think that's probably worth noting. United, Newcastle, Arsenal are 3 out of the next 4. Burnley at home, you think we do well. I'd like to see a happy, reversible critter ball soft toy as a result of that one. I don't know, guys. I mean, thoughts and prayers on that one. Obviously, I've already said my thought and prayer on the Everton Happy Sad reversible critter ball soft toy. I'd like him to be a lot happier. But, things could be a lot worse, man. This stuff happens. I mean, what is going on with some of these? We may have been the basket cakes club the last couple of years, but let's take a step back and rejoice that we are not some of these other people that really need our thoughts and prayers, Sean. So please take it away.
Yeah, so Tottenham, 2 wins in 17. I listened to a fan channel after their match, and they're really going through it. They want Thomas Frank fired. They want Harry Redknapp to take over. Jurgen Klinsmann is another option, and Mason is another option. And so I think they're taking it really well and rationally at the moment. Yeah, the United fan that was inches away from cutting his hair. Tough to reset the clock there. Tino Berry, keep your head up, man. Like the rational part of this fan base and I would say the majority of this fan base understands that strikers miss chances. We appreciate that you care as much as you do. Things will change. Okay, so please. Just do not.
I want to see him surrounded with better players, man. It'd be interesting. Yeah. Like, there's some hints there, guys. The last one, though, I'm really interested how you're going to.
Oh yeah, Roberto De Zerbi. It's the telenovela that has hit League One. Him and Marseille have agreed to part ways. Maybe he's the one to save Spurs, right? A 3-month contract. We've seen with Nottingham Forest what a tactical genius Ange was to come in and just change the system and what he did, right? So that's not to say that he can't save Spurs, right? It's just... And then one last one that I didn't put, and really a true prayers, is Dele Alli. I think he's going through a really hard time right now. I just want to know that, mental health, as we've talked about, really serious issue in this country, especially with gambling. Really hope that, he has some sort of support system that kind of puts their arm around him, and just really hate to see it, because as much as his Everton career wasn't great, just a stand-up guy, right? And know that he's, had some real mental battles, and really hope he gets through it.
So well said, Sean, and agree.
Yeah. So then going to score predictions, 3 correct predictions, Richard W., DMX, and Yinzer Toffee. Of course, keep them coming, and please, for the life of me, please use the document on the Discord. I don't know how many times I can ask, but I will still count yours.
I made such a pretty form for people, and they just...
I know, exactly. Yeah,
Really
and mentions Gerard De La Feu. I mean, come on,
That's
man.
right.
Like,
That's right.
So,
It hurts your
upcoming
feelings?
pod, the United pod, but we have a bit of
Did
an
you hold your
international
head
break,
down?
so.
Is it like you went headless? Like
Stop
that?
interrupting Sean, Ryan. He's trying to finish the pod, and you keep dragging it on.
The upcoming pod is the United podcast. So
We got a little time off, a little time to recuperate, bounce back. And with that, monstrosity of a podcast is finished. We hope you enjoyed it if you're still listening. An hour and change on. As a reminder, if you liked it, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice if you are listening. Join our Discord, find all of the links in the description. And with that, we'll be with you next time. Until then, up the Toffees.